And we are live. Hello, hello. Welcome on into another episode of the Whiskey Crusaders. We are live again on a Saturday night, talking this time with the Waterford Distillery. We have Raj here with us today. Matt, who's in the chat?
Oh, this is Will, and I'm Sarah.
Oh, I forget to introduce
That's
people.
Matt.
That guy.
So, go ahead, Matt. We're all out of sorts because it's not Monday night.
It isn't Monday, and I don't have bacon. It's weird.
All right, we got John Kranz, we got Ben Demon Hunter, we got Jeremy Burns, Donner Pass Whiskey, our buddy Brian over at Pitface Barbecue. Please check out his pitfacebarbecue.com. Amazing rubs for your meat. All right, we got Steve. Oh, we got the ad for StreamYard. All right, I love it when it takes over. It's my favorite. All right, so what else we got here? Go back at John.
We already use your service.
Mine's a Dunbell.
Yeah, for real. It's like I see these things every day, lots of times. We got Tom. Let's see. We got Jim Morris. We've got Steve A. Alex is in here. DJ11. How's it going? We got Feroz. Watch from 99. Brent. And let's see here. Of course, half of them won't tell who they are, which is fun because, you know, this is the back. I got Travis. Oh, I do want to give out to our buddy Travis and say we're sorry about your grandma and our thoughts and prayers with your family or what's going on with all that stuff that's going on right now. So cheers to her, and we'll drink some great single malt here in just a few minutes. Just in honor of her, and I'm going to let Raj take over and tell us a little about yourself and Waterford.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Sorry for the bit of a delay, but I'm glad everyone's on board. So my name is Raj Sabharwal. I am one of the owners of Glass Revolution Imports, and we are fortunate enough to be the importers of Waterford Irish Single Malt. Included with Waterford, we also import Amrut Single Malt from India, Mary McDavid, Black Adder, Druid Cognac, Mahone Gin, a variety of other things. So we're sort of whiskey specialists, but we do also have other items in our portfolio that we tend to make sure they fit the whole ethos of what we're all about, which are small distilleries that are independently owned and make really good quality products.
Absolutely. Lots of good stuff here for sure. All right, so I guess I'll everybody just start off. You said this is Rathclogh, is how you pronounce this one, is that correct?
Rathclogh, yeah. So what we're going to do is I just want everyone to bear in mind that although these say Irish single malt, and the initial impression or probably perception is that it's going to be Irish whiskeys. I want everyone to remember that these are Irish. They're single malt whiskeys foremost. Okay, they just happen to be made in Ireland. So everything is made according to the Scottish single malt regulations. So they're double distilled, not triple distilled. They are made from 100% Irish barley, which is totally different than what happens in most of Scotland, where most of the barley used in Scotland is from all over the place. You can get barley from Ukraine, the Middle East, from Canada, wherever else. I mean, only about 40% of barley that's used in Scotland actually grows in Great Britain. The rest of it has to be exported. There isn't enough.
Oh,
yeah. So even the distilleries that say that we're using 100%, that we're using, or we're doing our own maltings, or we're using local barley, they can only supply about 40% of what they need. The rest of it they have to import or have malted at some different facility. So a bit of a background, Mark Reynier, who may ring a bell with some people, he resurrected Bruichladdich Distillery in 2000.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2014, Bruichladdich was sold against Mark's desires. And for those of you who have followed the Bruichladdich history and story, you'll know that a lot of what Mark tried to do was emphasize trying to use different barleys, trying to use different methods of production. Mm-hmm. Mark had spent 20 years in the wine business before he switched over to spirits and whiskey. All right. So he used a lot of his knowledge, especially with wines from Burgundy, because his family, his grandfather had started a wine importing business. So Mark grew up in that, and it's funny because up until the late '90s, he had never had whiskey. He had only had wine, and he happened to be at a wine show in London, and somebody called him over and said, "Hey, we're giving away a bottle of whiskey. Do you want to enter your name?" And Mark said, "Well, I don't have my business card, but so the guy gave him a card, and Mark wrote his name on there, and lo and behold, he won. It was a 30-year-old bottle of Bruichladdich."
Wow.
And
What a win.
so it was funny because it was the owner called him up and said, "Well, you won this, but do you mind if I buy it back from you, because we could sell it for a lot more money?" So back then, Mark made like 1,000 or 1,500 pounds overnight without even having tasted it. But when he went over to the retailer, they said, "Well, why don't you taste some whiskeys?" And Mark, having had no experience with whiskey, approached it from a wine sense. So started nosing it and tasting it and approaching it the same way you would do with wine. And he was like, "Wow, this is pretty incredible." And so what's going on with whiskey that I don't know about? So, but if everyone's poured their first Waterford, which is the Rathclogh.
Okay.
Rathclogh refers to the farm on where the barley was raised. So everything that Waterford does is 100% Irish barley. Rathclogh refers to the fact that the barley was grown on that particular farm. And then when they harvest the barley is kept separately. It is dried separately in a separate hopper, and then it is malted separately. It is mashed separately, fermented separately, distilled separately, and matured separately. So all of that is totally different. Okay, and while we're tasting Rathclogh, I'm just going to share my screen with everyone who's watching. To show you the sorry, I don't know why this is not letting me. Oh, okay.
All right, well, you're looking for that. Say hi to our buddy Liquor Hound. I saw him in here. So if you guys haven't checked out Liquor Hound's channel, please do. He's one of the original whiskey tubers. So please check out. He's been around for at least over 10 years. Amazing guy with amazing knowledge. So all right, we're gonna bring in this here. Let you share. You got to share the screen.
I don't know if this is right. So no, this is not correct. So sorry, Matt. If you can do this, because I tend to do a lot. I tend to do a lot of Zoom things every like 2 or 3 a week. But StreamYard, I've used it before, but it's kind of different. So if you could go to the Waterford Distillery site and to Chairwire, the code.
Let's go here and share.
And one of the interesting things is that at the back of every bottle, there is a code, a Chairwire code. So on Rathclogh, the particular code is F016E0101. And if you go onto the Waterford Distillery site and you click on Chairwire and you enter the code, it will give you full transparency, full access to everything. Matt, I think you're on the right one, but you just need to scroll up on there.
Let's see here. It went away on me. I'm re-putting it back in. I'm on stream, Violet. Something very important, I'm sure.
The back of the boxes. If
okay.
You can a picture of the back of the boxes while he's looking for that.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Kind of see.
Okay.
That's what they're talking about.
Okay, so that's
a different. I don't think that's
for the organic.
Right. That's. I'm just showing what you mean, where to look.
Yeah. So thank you, Sarah. So yeah, on the back of every bottle, there is the specific terroir code. So if you go on to Waterford's distillery site and you click on terroir, you can actually enter this code, and it will give you more information than you ever wanted. It will give you, talk about transparency. I've never seen any distillery do this. So you can get every bit of information that you ever dreamed of. So it will tell you the type of barley, the details about the farm, when the barley was sown, when it was harvested, when it was, how long it sat drying for, when it was malted, when it came to the distillery, how long it was fermented for, everything else like that. So as soon as Matt has this up, we can do that.
All right, here we go. All right, now we should be good.
All right. So can you blow that up?
Yep. That's
all right.
as good as it goes.
All right. So this is Waterford. You can see this is Rathclogh. It talks about the fact that this is edition 1.1. This is all Irenia barley varietal, and when it was everything that happened about it. Okay, so if how many bottles were released, and this is a U.S. exclusive. So the first 3 whiskeys we're going to taste were only available in the U.S. 13,000 bottles for the U.S. and when it was bottled. So if you want to scroll down on this.
Okay.
So that shows you where Waterford Distillery is located and where Rathclogh, the farm, is.
Okay.
And keep scrolling down. All right. So sound. So just hold on there for a second. So you go back. It says the sounds of Rathclogh. So if you're so inclined, if you want to be there, if you click on the play button, you can immerse yourself as if you're on the Rathclogh farm and hearing the sounds of Rathclogh.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And this other one shows you when the barley was sown, when it was harvested, and the growing period. So you can see all that details. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Scroll down more. There's Richard, who owns the farm and grows all the barley. This has more details about when it was sown, when it was harvested, all of that. Continue to scroll down, Matt. Yeah. And then it tells you the distillers at Waterford who worked on this. Fermentation was started in June 22nd and ended June 28th. So they had about 5 days of fermentation. So very, very long fermentation, which is really unusual because in Scotland, usually most distilleries will do maybe 48 hours of distillation, but Waterford minimum distillation they're doing is about 130 hours, up to about 160 hours.
Dang.
And when you do a long distillation process, what happens is that you get more flavor coming out of there. You're not rushing the distillation. You're allowing all the yeast to eat the sugars in the barley and convert that to an alcohol spirit, which will then be distilled. Okay, go ahead, Matt, scroll down more. Okay, so that's, if you want to click on that, you'll hear Richard talking about the farm and how honored he is to have grown barley for Waterford. And keep going down.
Okay.
All right. And this is the farm. So if you want to scroll, you want to highlight the farm and click onto it, you can get a really close picture of the farm. You can see the 3 different areas that where they grow the barley, and where the farm is located. It's quite incredible. And then
wild.
if you keep going down, Matt, you'll see. I think we'll talk about the soil types.
All right.
Oh, wow.
So
Cool.
this shows you actually the soil, the depth of the soil. You can see the different striations and the different kinds of soil. Right in the middle there, about the 40 centimeter mark, you're seeing a lot of limestone, a lot of loam further down, and keep scrolling down.
Whoa.
So it's Elton Association, the type of soil, the description, the elevation of the farm, and the average sunlight, which is 5 to 5.5 hours a day.
Wow. That's not super long at all.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's Ireland, so that's all you're going to get. So you scroll down.
You
I
can
mentioned
remember
it's,
that.
Irenia varietal of barley, where the water comes from. The yeast strain is the Maori distillery yeast, and all the first three whiskeys we're going to taste are all Irenia and all have the Maori yeast strain in there. And then the fermentation, 141 hours.
Wow.
Which is really, really long. And if you look at this is Ned, who is the head distiller, his comments about this. So before you read this, so when you nose this whiskey, what flavors are you getting?
All right, let's see here. It's really clean. It's like a spring meadow.
It really
Yeah.
is.
Citrus. Maybe like a lemon zest.
Okay.
Unbaked
Kind of
bread.
grassy. Hey, there's Chris.
Hey, hey.
Hey, Chris,
We
how's
have
it
some
going?
people backstage as well that I may pop on screen every once in a while to give tasting notes or nosing notes.
Pop you in
This
now.
is one of them that I trust quite a bit on the nose.
Yeah, thank you.
It's very grassy.
It is. It's very
Yeah.
floral.
A lot of bread.
Yeah.
Fresh
Yeasty.
baked bread.
Yeah, bready.
Yeah.
yeasty.
It is very yeasty, very bready. Yeah. I'm responding in the comments that people are posting. So just let everyone know that the code for this first one I just posted that up there, and that's what Matt was sharing. But this is certainly it, and we'll share the codes for all of the other bottles as well.
Yes. Yeah, we have all the codes. I've also put them all in Discord for you guys. If you need them in Discord, they'll be there too.
Correct. So Matt, can you go back to
Yeah.
the shared screen?
All righty. All right. Are we good? I need to go back and add it back in. I think I have to add it back. There we go.
There we go. Okay. So scroll down. Just want to show people how much detail there is.
Yeah,
in
you can
this.
definitely tell this is done by the guy who
Okay.
made Bruichladdich because this is their work, just like theirs. I'm like, oh, but that's even more detail than Bruichladdich.
Right. So hold up there a second. So this is the wood profile. So all of the whiskeys. So two things to bear in mind. The distillation that comes off the new mixed spirit is about 71%, so 140, 142 proof. Most, because of the Scottish regulations, you have to water it down before you fill the barrels. Okay, so most distilleries in Scotland will tend to go 61.5 to 62.5%, so 122 to about 123 proof. Waterford does not water it down. So whatever it comes off the still at, it goes into the barrels at that strength.
Okay.
So here's a couple of things. One is that when you water something down, you're obviously extending your yield, right? So you're getting more spirit that can go into more barrels. Waterford said, we're not going to do that because we want to have the best spirit possible, the best whiskey possible. So if you put a high strength spirit, new make spirit into a barrel, you're going to get more extraction. You're going to get more interaction with the wood and drawing more flavors. And every single whiskey that Waterford makes goes into a combination of ex-bourbon casks, virgin American oak casks, old French casks, and then a vin de naturel, which is a sort of a generic term referring to things like port, sherry, Banyuls, Madeira, Sauterne, any kind of fortified or wine fortified drink that might occur. So if you look at this tells you how many, with a cask number, the cask type, when it was filled, who coopered it, the fill date, and the farmer. So this is all Rathclogh. And if you scroll down, you can see, okay, how much of it was American oak and where it came from as far as ex-bourbon casks go. And then you'll see the New American oak. And then you'll see the French oak and where that was sourced from. So there's a variety of it. And when you look at the Vin Naturel, they're bigger casks, so that's why there's less of them. But these are all sherry. And if you look at it, 31% went into first fill bourbon casks, 19% to virgin American oak, 25% into French, and the balance into Vin Naturel.
Okay.
And I don't know if any other distillery producer that shares this kind of detail with you.
No, I never seen anything remotely like this. Yeah. This is wild.
Yeah, that's craziness.
That's really cool, though.
And they have that for every single bottle. Every single bottle has that kind of detail written about it.
Every single release will. So if the Rathclogh 1.1 has all the information. 1.2 will have different information because it might be a different mix of what goes into the final bottling. The other whiskeys you're going to taste are going to have different details on there.
Okay. So we have a few questions that have come in.
Yeah, you got that?
So, yeah. So Joe wants to know. Oops, wrong thing. Going above it. It moved on me. There we go. So you guys don't do any trading of casks whatsoever then?
No, everything. So given Mark's background in the wine business, he has his family has connections throughout Europe as far as getting good quality casks. So to date, they have invested about £6 million. So that's about $10 million
money
in barrels. Okay.
Alrighty then.
All right. So that there's no hesitation about the quality of what to use. But bear in mind, okay, so barrels are one thing, but if you hear Mark talk, he will tell you that the most important thing is the barley, and it's the terroir. And just like wine, so if anybody on joining us tonight are wine drinkers, they may have heard the term terroir, and that refers to the vineyard and the different soil conditions and how it affects the different grapes. Okay,
the weather, the vineyard, the placement, everything goes into how the wine eventually will taste.
Absolutely,
all of the conditions affect the wine taste. Is what terroir basically means.
Right. So here we have traceability. Terroir, transparency, everything. So where the barley was grown, what kind of barley it was, when it was harvested, when it was sown, when it was harvested, how long it dried for, how long it fermented for, and the types of barrels it went into. Okay, so barrels are one thing, but the whole goal of Waterford is to demonstrate how barley makes a difference. Okay,
well, so let's get on to this next one then, so that we can kind of compare and contrast.
That's excellent. All right, so
my glass here.
We're gonna do Dunmore next. So
yeah, so Donner Pass wants to know: will there be any 100 milliliter like sampling packs to do a comparison, or would you have to buy each bottle individually?
Well, we would prefer you buy every bottle.
Yes, I know.
but yeah, we're working on sampling packs, and an example is what you got, what you received were the different samples of the different ones. And I'm currently working with Waterford to develop a kit that will actually have 2 new make.
There we go. There's the Dunmore, guys. This is the one we're moving on towards Dunmore.
Yeah, 2 new make spirits, and then 3. So the 3 single farm origins we're tasting, the U.S. exclusive. So we'll have that. So that will allow people to compare and contrast. And Matt, if you have the code for Dunmore and you want to put that up there, that would be great. So we're not going to go with we're not going to go on to Waterford with every code, but like giving you the code, everyone can go on themselves and see what it's all about.
Which one is it, Matt? I can pick it up.
It's the one that's in F017E01-1.
The Dunmore is correct. Yeah.
Put them.
The one after it.
No, that's
60.
That's a different one.
Yeah, there you go.
That's it. Yeah.
Excellent. So, for anybody playing the home game, if you would like to go online and look up this particular one that we're tasting through, you can go through and look up way more information than you could possibly think you want to know.
Yes.
So one thing to keep in mind is that the Dunmore and the Rathclogh, exactly the same barley. The Irenia, exactly the same yeast that was used. Same harvest period. And one of the things why they selected these 3 that we're going to taste first for the U.S. is they're all the same soil stratification. Okay. So they all all the farms have the same soil type, which you'll see if you go onto the Chairwire code. But it is exactly the same barley, is exactly the same barrels that were used to mature it. Why does it taste different? Well, first I should say, does it taste different?
Quick question here. I don't want to miss it. Zach Andrews wants to know if Ireland allows for higher entry proof than Scotland with their regulations.
Ireland does not have a regulation regarding that. Scotland does. So Scotland, 63.5 is the maximum. Most distilleries do it about 61.5 to 62.5. But that's the ABV, not the proof. The proof, obviously you double that to get the proof. But Ireland does not stipulate what the barrel entry is, nor do they stipulate that it has to be oak barrels, as Scotland does.
So I'm not
Ireland. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you were explaining. Keep on.
But Waterford, all the barrels that Waterford is using are oak barrels, are either American oak or French oak, either bourbon or virgin oak, or a barrel that's had some kind of wine in it before it's used.
I was going to start talking about the whiskeys. I'm not finding a completely, obviously different whiskey here. I'm finding this one's a little bit spicier. This one has a lot more cinnamon to it than the last one did. I'm getting more baking spices in there, especially on the palate. I'm getting like a black pepper that I really, really enjoyed. This one feels a little bit deeper and more complex than the last one, a little bit richer, right? But I'm not playing with a completely different animal. Like this feels like they're definitely in the same territory. They're definitely in the same path.
Well, so there's 2 things. Well, one is you're right. It's not a different whiskey. It to bear in mind, it's the same barley. It's gone through the same process. It has had the same barrel exposure, but you're tasting differences. So
absolutely,
where are those differences coming from?
Yeah. Well,
and those differences are attributable to the fact that because the barley has been grown in a different farm, a slightly different soil, a different
it's the barley
elevation, maybe, it has affected the taste profile. And if a lot of people don't taste and go, what am I looking for? Well, I can't tell you what you're looking for. I want you to tell me what is different about it. And and certainly what's attributable to the differences that you're getting are the terroir of the barley, where it's grown, how it's affected. There might be a slightly different amount of sunlight. There might be a slightly different soil composition, but pretty much it's all the same. But don't forget, this is all the same barley, 3 different farms, all made the same way. But you yourself identified that there are differences.
Can I play devil's advocate real quick though?
Yep. Yeah.
I've been in many distilleries. I've gone through multiple barrel houses, and I've tasted the exact same thing in barrels sitting right next to each other that taste more different than these two taste.
Okay.
And that was the same grain, distilled on the same day, went into barrels and got set next to each other and just turned out night and day different. So
right. So when you do that, what are you tasting there? Are you tasting the raw material, i.e. the grain that made the whiskey, or are you being influenced by the barrels?
See, and in those cases, you want to assume that you're just being influenced by the barrels, and that's just a barrel difference. And
because everything else is the
same. Because
same.
everything else in the process was the same.
Well, I don't want you to assume anything, but I want you to sort of analyze it and rationalize it and say, why are those different? Because when I said earlier, so when you said you've been to distilleries and tasted, are you talking about Scotch, or are you talking about American whiskey or bourbon?
I've only ever been to Texas distilleries, to be completely honest with you.
Okay.
I've never been to Scotland. I want to go. I will go, but I have not been yet.
So most of what's made Texas has a big variety. You get bourbon, you get single malts, rye, whatever else like that. So
wheat,
unless you. So here's the thing: Waterford, everything we're tasting is a single grain, right? Malted barley from a single farm that has been kept separate and had gone through the same production process as anything else. But yet you're getting a different spirit. You're getting a different whiskey. And when you taste things now, most distillers, so corn aside, and let's face it, most of a bourbon and most American whiskey is going to have a lot of corn, right? At least 51% for bourbon, more for some other whiskeys that are made in America. Bourbon, corn is very inexpensive to produce, very inexpensive to use. Most distilleries are using column stills rather than pot stills. And Waterford is 100% pot still distilled, which is what you would see in Scotland. Pot still refers to the fact that it's a single batch. It's coming out of there, so a lot tighter control. When you're using a column still, it's called a continuous still as well. So it's continually working. So you're continually feeding it. You're continually getting distillations off of it. Yeah. So you're not going to get much variation off of there, because a distiller can pick where they take it off of. Okay, when you're doing a pot still distillation, the only thing you can decide on is where I take my cuts. The heads are so much volatile as you don't want. The middle cut, you determine that because that's going to give you the richest spirit, and the tails you're going to end up reusing for another distillation.
I guess my devil's advocate point here that I kind of want to make is that if I were to go, Chris, if you and me were to go through a barrel house at, say, Ironroot, which we haven't done, but we have at Lone Elm, right? If we were to go through a barrel house at Ironroot and they were to allow us to create 3 whiskeys, do you not think we could create 3 completely different whiskeys pretty darn easily using all 100% corn whiskeys?
Oh yeah, with the climate, I think that's the big difference here. And so with our high heat, it being the exact same barrels, depending fill levels and everything. You are going to get the similar vein, kind of like these two do, but we are going to see those, like you said, the differences between the barrels, even though they're right next to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But
So we could,
maybe a lot of
but essentially, we could create 3 corn releases from Iron Root that were vastly different from each other.
Yes. Yeah.
You
Okay.
could, but how many of those, what Iron Root is using to fill the barrels, how many of where the corn came from a particular farm?
Right. And my point simply is just that we're trying to go down this path that says that terroir is a thing in whiskey. And there are a lot of people that say terroir is not a thing in whiskey. And so I'm just trying to kind of play devil's advocate. I do believe that where you're growing this stuff does matter. And I think that corn has changed drastically over the years, which is why our bourbon has changed drastically over the years. So, I mean, I'm not a proponent that thinks that terroir doesn't matter. But what I'm simply trying to play devil's advocate as to say that, do you really feel that the barley is that different?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I do. I mean, I absolutely do. And don't forget, it's a commodity grain, right? Corn is, and most distillers, all they care about is the yield. How much spirit can I get out of a ton of grain? Okay. Yeah. And so the more I can get, the better it is for me as a distiller. But if you really care about what you're producing and that you want to make a difference, it's going to be totally different about where you source it from, how you manage it, and what you do with it. And give me a second. I'm just you talk about Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know. I'll get to Zach's question too, which
how many people have read Rob Arnold's book, The Chairwire of Whiskey?
I have not read that book.
So Rob Arnold he's based in Texas. He is a distiller in Texas, and he traveled the world to visit different distilleries and analyze and talk about the terroir of whiskey. Mm-hmm. So here, if you're talking about Texas, pick up this book and read Rob's book and his analysis of it, what he came up with it. And in fact,
they're ordering it for me on Amazon right now.
There you go. Perfect. If you go to and you look at it, the fact that Waterford has worked with somebody at the University of Oregon, somebody in Scotland, somebody in Ireland, and they have done a total analysis of it. They've analyzed micro distillations of each barley strain from different farms to look at the flavor profile of how the differences are. And new make spirit. So, I mean, I think if we had another time and I was able to, in a smaller group, to start you off with 2 new make spirits from different farms, but the same barley strain, same yeast, same fermentation period, and have you nose those and taste those straight off the still, I guarantee you would see a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that I'm no doubt
We
about.
watched the video Rex and Daniel did over at Waterford Night, and I absolutely trust their palates, and I know that these things are different. I just like to play devil's advocate and give you the hard.
I appreciate that. I mean, you need to. I mean, I think people need to play devil's advocate. They need to question it because for so many years, the marketing spin has been on. It's all about the barrel. It's all about the water. I will guarantee you, water is the least factor in the quality of a whiskey.
Yeah,
I actually agree with that completely. I think the yeast and the grain and the wood are far more important than the
absolutely.
Plus the water.
But when you look at so let's take the grain, because grain is where your flavor comes from grain. Okay. Scotch distillers will tell you that flavor comes from the barrel. I mean, how many times have you heard 60 to 70% of the flavors from the barrel?
A lot.
And that is because those distillers are trying to get the biggest yield from barley,
Okay.
getting the cheapest barley they can. They don't care where it comes from.
Right.
Okay. 60% of the barley that's used in Scotland does not grow in Great Britain. Okay. It comes from the Middle East. It comes from the Ukraine. It comes from Canada. It comes from different places, wherever they can get it from. So unless you are growing your own barley, malting it yourself, you have no control over it. So if you say to one of the malting facilities or grain providers, I need 10 tons of barley, you don't know what you're getting.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, you can specify, okay, I want this kind of barley, or I want it malted to this level. I want it chocolate malted, or I want this malting. Sure. But it's still a mishmash of barley.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. But here you're getting a specific, what kind of barley it is, what kind of yeast it is, where it's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
So
right.
Zach,
so how many?
Sorry.
So Zach's asking, are the cask makeups of each release the same? They're not exactly the same, Zach, but they're very similar. So they're using approximately 30% of ex-bourbon, about 20% of virgin American oak, 25 to 30% of French oak, so quality French oak. So usually barrels that have been used by different high quality vineyards, whether they're Burgundy or Bordeaux vineyards, and the rest are Vin Naturel. So the variation you get is in the Vin Naturel. You could have more sherry. You could have maybe a mix of sherry and port, maybe a little bit of Sauterne, maybe Madeira. But those are where they're aging in. So when they get the distillation happens from the single harvest, it gets split into these 200 barrels, and it is matured. They're all matured separately. And then when they're released, Ned, who's the head distiller, decides upon what the mix is going to be like when they're bottled.
So essentially, each farm is getting its own blend. Each farm is getting its own creation, its own blend of barrels to best represent that farm.
Correct. But the blend of barrels are all from the same farm.
But again, playing devil's advocate, it'd be pretty darn easy to make all of these blends taste specific ways. If you're going to use cask Bordeaux, maybe I use more Sauternes in this person's farm and more, So go ahead.
Well, but it's all the same barley from one single farm. So these are all releases 1.1. Okay. Mm-hmm. So next later this year we will have releases 1.2. Okay. Which will be exactly the same harvest. Okay. So 1 refers to when the harvest was, and 2.2 would be the release.
Okay. So
barley that's been
released.
Yeah. So it'd be barley, the same barley that's harvested at the same time. It's been aged in the same barrels, but what ends up being released is they're always older. Okay. So what you're tasting today is the youngest Waterfords you will ever have.
Right.
Okay.
Well, hopefully you might get new farms. Well, I guess
you won't.
Be 3 years.
You won't. This is the youngest you'll ever have.
Yeah. Well, I think we should move on to the third one because I already sipped it and I really like it.
All right. The third one's the Dunbell. Sorry, I could wax eloquently about all these. I'm obviously very passionate about Waterford, as I am with all of the brands that we import.
But I still think on the second one that you get more grapefruit on it than compared to the lemon on the first one. Like there's lots of black pepper and more cinnamon.
Yeah,
there's still citrus notes. Yeah, there's still citrus notes. There's still peppery on there. Yeah,
I got a little more stewed fruits on the second one.
What was that?
A little more. Sorry, Chris,
stewed fruits. There was a little touch of sourness on the second one, but it opened up and it actually both those actually improved with there for me.
Yeah,
I I think because everything you're tasting tonight is just shy of 4 years.
Okay.
3 years and 8 months, 3 years and 9 months. But for the age, they're elegant whiskeys.
Matt, what's the third? We're moving on to the Dunbell. What's the number on it?
The Dunbell.
That one is F022E01-01.
Look at you, lucky
Oh
guess.
man, I got that right.
You got it. Good job.
So Dunbell is the first two you tasted are available in the retail market. They're readily available in Texas or wherever. I think most of your audience is Texas, but other places. Dunbell is not a retail item. It's only available online. So it's available through our website, glassrev.com, or a few online retailers. And it's a smaller production, but that was the Waterford sort of insisted that this only be an online availability. And part of the reason was that gives markets that we didn't initially enter or were not in consumers there to get access to at least one kind of Waterford expression. So Dunbell, again, the same kind of harvest, the same. I think a little shorter fermentation period if people are looking on the Chairwire code site. But Irenia, the same barley strain. Maori yeast, the same yeast. About the same fermentation period. And they're not forcing fermentation, so they're allowing the barley to ferment naturally. So as long as there's active yeast and is eating the sugars in the barley, they will allow that to continue. As soon as the yeast is dead, then they will use that fermented spirit to be transported to the spirit still, where it'll go through its first distillation.
How far apart are these farms themselves?
Well, if Ireland's not a big country, as you know, so they're probably no more than 40, 50 miles apart, but they are, if you look on the map, they're all on the same soil.
Okay.
Tertiary.
Okay.
And they all have the same soil stratification.
Nice.
Oh, this is my favorite nose by far. That's the initial nose.
So
and my favorite on the palate as well. To me,
You
said grapefruit on the last one, and on the palate on this one, this is the sour one. This to me has that sour grapefruit, like breakfast grapefruit with a little bit of sugar on top. And then all the wood notes and the wood tannins start to show up, and it's nice.
So I like apricot on the nose, like a lemon pledge, and
yeah, I get more lemon than I do grapefruit on it for me.
It's almost like a grape nuts to it as well that I'm getting.
Okay. Cereal note.
Well, it's interesting you're talking about grape because whereas the first two you had were predominantly sherry butts for the Vin Natural, this one has Sauterne casks.
Interesting.
So, as you know, Sauterne is fortified, a dessert wine in France that the grapes have had a long hang on the vines. They go through what's called noble rot, where the grapes naturally have this
fungus,
botrytis fungus that affects it, which actually makes it really delicious. So that's the barrels are used to age those wine, and then they got some of those, and that's again a smaller amount. So that was all that was available.
For anybody that's
that probably contributes to a small differential, but again, the main factor is what you're tasting is the differential in the farm and the soil conditions and the barley.
Yeah,
that's got way more flavor to it than the first two for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
It's really going on.
Yeah, I was gonna say they're all real like breakfast malt type characteristic to them, and then I think this one to me has the best balance of the fruit and the floral.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Nice.
Interesting. It's funny, Chris, because obviously it's subjective. So when I do tastings and people are tasting all of them, we'll get people. Oh, I really like the Rathclogh, or I really like the Dunmore, or I like the Dunbell. I mean, there's not consistency across the board as to what people like, which is great. I mean, that's why there's so many whiskeys in the world.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Thank goodness, because if
Yeah,
everybody
over.
liked my favorite whiskey, I'd be really mad. It would be horrible. It really would. I'm so glad we all have different palates so that I can really like my thing and I can buy it, because if everybody liked my thing, I wouldn't be able to buy it.
You're absolutely right. It's like when you have a band that you've discovered or an artist and you really enjoy his or her music, and as soon as it goes mainstream, other people start going like, "Holy shit!" I mean, I've known about this artist for like 20 years, and why is everybody else listening to it all of a sudden?
Mm-hmm.
See, but that's no, because they change too, don't they? The artists change when they get famous. So
Yep.
Well,
Now
and
you're
prices
and
go up
whiskey
for
does too.
concerts, and
prices go up for concert tickets. Yeah,
all of it.
Yeah.
I may not be able to get a concert ticket.
And whiskey and other spirits do too. I mean, it's hard to stay humble and stay small because unless you're passionate about what you're doing and you don't care about the money or the returns, you can stay that way. But ultimately everyone, greed sort of unfortunately overtakes, and everyone wants to go like, oh, I can make more of this, I can make this cheaper, I can make this more of this. But when you get, Waterford, for example, Mark Rene started doing this kind of terroir experiment at Brooklady when Remy approached them to buy the distillery. Mark was vehemently against it, but he was overruled by the board. And the good thing is that now with Waterford, he has total control over it. He's not that he's the biggest shareholder, but part of the agreements he had with everybody else was that this is what we're about, this is what we're going to do, and they'll continue to do it. And watch out for later this year, we'll be releasing a rum project that Mark's working on Grenada, and it's all going to be terroir driven, single farm sugarcane, different types of sugarcane, rum. So that I'm quite excited about that.
Nice.
Very nice.
Are those going to be aged rums, or are they going to be clear spirits?
Well, the first releases are going to be clear. Because they've just been distilling. They just started distilling this year. So we'll have, if we're not allowed to call it Claren, because Claren is only made in Haiti, but it will be similar to that. So it'll be high strength single
version of. Yeah,
it'll be a new make spirit, a new make rum, single farm, single type of sugarcane, because there are different types of sugarcane. So you will have the opportunity to taste those and enjoy those.
And there'll be an agricole product, right?
Well, you can't call it agricole. Is
But
unfortunately
just
regulated
sugarcane.
to only French islands.
Yes.
So Martinique, Guadeloupe, and one other that's escaping me right now. But so it will be.
That's
it will be close to agricole because it will be it's all sugarcane juice. It's not no molasses, so it's going to be very similar to that.
And what same type of stills?
So some will be pot stills, some will be column stills, but it will specify on there. So again, it'll be really interesting because you'll be able to taste. Okay, here's the same farm sugarcane that's been pot distilled, and here's one that's column distilled.
That should be very interesting. I love to try that.
Absolutely. All right. And Canadian Whiskey Smith is drinking Banno Island 1.1. So I don't know what Canadian Whiskey Smith is from, but
Canada.
I must confess, I grew up in Canada. I grew up in Toronto, so I'm a Canadian by heart and by spent most of my life there. So
If
Banno
memory
Island,
serves me right,
Alberta.
she's in Alberta.
right? Sorry. He's in Alberta.
She's in Alberta.
I'm sorry. All right. Well, we
several Canadians in here.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah, we do.
So Banno Island was not available in the U.S.
Okay.
There was a limited amount available in
Of course,
Canada, and she probably bought it at Kensington. That would be my guess.
Okay.
In Calgary, but
She
yeah.
also wants to know are you guys using blockchain for tracking?
They're not using blockchain yet, but they I've introduced them to a company that I know that is doing that, where they're actually having embedded codes on every bottle that once they're open, there's traceability. So they're looking at that, but not currently. They've got a number of different projects that they're working on and different things. And blockchain is, there we go. Yeah, Kensington wine marker for the win. Well, Graham knows his stuff, and Andrew knows his stuff and brings in some great stuff, some things. All right, if everyone's ready, should we move on to the sort of orphan child of this? This is the organic Gaia.
Yeah, I'll put my guys.
All right,
there we go.
So all of these so far have been nice and rich and viscous. I'm noticing that they're all at 50%. Is that the plan? We're going to keep releasing everything at about 50%?
Yes.
Nice.
It works.
You want anything lower? There's no plans to do any single barrels. You want to see anything lower? But yeah, everything is 50% because that allows the consumer to add as much or as little water as they want.
Okay.
And for those of you who may know me and have been on any of my tastings, you'll know I'm a big proponent of either high strength or cast strength spirits. I just, and I'm totally against chill filtering. And I've had this, I'm recently talking to an Irish distillery that wants to talk to us about importing stuff that's chill filtered and caramel added. And I'm going, sorry, do I have a bad connection here? I'm not quite sure what you're saying. but
I'm not hearing you. You're saying something wrong.
The distiller says, "Well, I will convince you why that makes sense." I said, "Okay, we'll talk next week." Yeah. So this is the first. So this is part of the Arcadian series from Waterford. You'll see Arcadian series. So this is the first organic whiskey out of Ireland. It actually, again, a feedback. I don't know if that means mic's on, but this is the first. This year, this won best organics product out of Ireland. So there were not, and there still are not enough farms that were able to make enough barley, organic barley, to do one batch. So this is actually 6 different farms. You can see the details on there, the different farms that are different farmers, different growers. So again, if you put in the terroir code, which Matt will throw up there, I'll let you know. But if you go on there, it'll tell you all the details. This is still the same.
It's the ORO. Yeah, the OR0. Yeah, that one.
Yeah. So this is a different strain of barley. This is Overture Barley, where the first 3 we had were Irenia, but all organically grown. So the barleys came from 6 different farms. They were all kept together. Waterford has this facility called the Cathedral, where each barley comes from a farm, is kept in separate stalls to allow it to dry. And it dries for about 6 to 7 months. And then that barley is taken, it's malted separately on a floor malting facility that is only used for Waterford. and then the barley is taken to the distillery where it is mashed, fermented, and distilled, and then aged. So this, a slightly different taste profile. I have a bias. I actually think the organic I love the organic. I think it's really, really good.
It feels warmer than the 50% that it is to me. And it's got a lot more cinnamon. And when I say cinnamon, I mean like the big red gum type of cinnamon as opposed to the baking spice cinnamon.
Yeah, I like those cinnamon candies, those red hot.
Yeah, red hot, whatever.
Yeah. There's definitely that cinnamon note on there. A little bit of salinity. I don't know. I mean, it's getting a little saltiness on there.
Yeah, it's got the salt. It's got like a really heavy toast on it. It seems as well.
Yeah.
The first thing that popped out.
I think that's. I think there's slightly a little bit more of the French oak that was used in this than the previous three we had. So you might pick up a little bit of that toasty, yeasty breadiness.
Mm-hmm.
Chris, I didn't hear
there.
So I was just saying the herbal component is unique on this one. Like when I was first nosing it, I was trying to pick it out because it was something pretty unique, and it was almost like a little cardamom, a little like chocolate mint, and lemongrass.
Yeah, that's great palate, Chris. I mean, I never want to say what I'm tasting or what you should taste.
Yeah,
everyone has different. Like if you never had lemongrass before, you don't know what lemongrass tastes like.
Yeah.
If you never had papaya before or mango, I can't describe that for you.
Mm-hmm.
You only have to know it yourself.
Well, and then you also say what you're smelling, and they're gonna look for that and find it without finding it themselves.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes I'll say, if somebody says, "Okay, I get citrus," I'm going to say, "What do what kind of citrus are you getting?"
Right.
Drill down from there. I mean, the one thing I'm vehemently against is somebody says sweet. Well, sweet's not a flavor.
Yeah.
Right.
So, what kind of sweet are you getting? Are you getting candy floss sweet? Or are you getting powdered sugar? Caramel. What kind of sweet are you getting? So,
Donald
but
Grant
this is
know what neighborhood you lived in Toronto.
Who wants to know that?
Donald Rance. He's up in Canada.
Yeah, he lived in Toronto.
All right. Well, I grew up in Tobico, northern Tobico, and then I lived in Roncesvalles in Toronto for a number of years.
Nice.
Before I've lived, but it was funny. The New York Times recently had this thing where 20 questions about how you would pronounce different words, and then it would tell you where you're from. And mine came up. Well, I'm either from Boston or these two little towns in Florida. Like, how wrong is that? But I mean, I've lived in 18 cities in 5 countries, so I think I have a real.
Really screw me up. Right? They'd really screw me up. I'm from Massachusetts, so but I live in Texas now, and I have for 27 years. So it depends on what mood I'm in, depending on how I pronounce things sometimes.
Or how many drams or beers you've had.
True.
Yeah, it really depends on if I'm pissed off or not, because then
that's when the Yankee
comes out like that.
So to me,
I was watching a live stream concert. I don't know if anybody here is a fan of Lyle Lovett, who is in Texas, and Sarah McLachlan, but they were doing a live stream last night, and I said to my wife, "Well, it's funny because when Sarah's talking, I can hear the Canadian, the out and about." Which we Canadians always get accused of pronouncing, and we're not aware of it, but I guess we do say it that way.
To me, the organic is the richest of what you've given us so far, and that could be because I poured all of them at the same time, and this one has just had the most time to open up, and that very well could be. But to me, this one actually tastes more like a 6-year-old whiskey than a 3-year-old whiskey. I'm getting more depth. I'm getting more richness. I'm getting more complexity. And again, it could be the combination of all the farms that could play to do with that. But it also, I don't know, it just, to me, this one just has a better mouth feel than the rest of them.
I like this one.
Way
Well,
more oily.
It could be also because it's organic, so no pesticides, no other factors that have gone into influencing the barley.
Except more poop. Instead of pesticides, you use more poop. Like that's what
nothing wrong with that. But wait till this year we're going to have a biodynamic release. So talk about poop. I mean, there's a lot more poop in biodynamic than there is in organic.
Yeah, there is.
Leave it to this one. Don't always talk about poop.
Hey,
and if you it's funny because if you ask Mark what his vision or what his desire is to eventually have from Waterford, it's a 20-year-old biodynamic, because I think when the biodynamic comes out later this year, people will be blown away with it. It's just so rich and so intense in flavor.
Waterford Floki.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's all sticking the poop in the cow horns and burying them in the ground and getting that to happen. But one thing I want to point out to you is that all of these single farm origins that you're tasting today, that's not the end goal of Waterford. Okay. So you will see, 1.2, 2.1, whatever. But the end goal is to take all of the flavors from the various different farms and analyze them to layer them to create the best marriage of whiskeys that Waterford can produce, or as Mark likes to call it, one mind fuck of a whiskey. and
Sounds like my kind of whiskey.
we will have the first cuvee probably in October, available in the US.
Nice.
That's going to be a worldwide release, but that will be right now. They're looking at about 23 or 24 different farms. From there, layered in, bringing it all together. And so the first variations I've tasted that have been incredible, and I really look forward to that.
Interesting.
That should be fun. That sounds very interesting.
Can't wait to taste that.
So, I mean, again, one thing I can't reiterate enough is that although this is Irish single malt whiskey, and you'll notice that whiskey is spelt without the E.
Oh, I did not notice that.
There is no regulation in Ireland that says whiskey has to have an E. There are two other distilleries, historical distilleries in Ireland that do not use the E. Okay. And so that's one thing to bear in mind. And the other thing is that this is a single malt whiskey that just happens to be made in Ireland, but predominantly it's made from 100% Irish barley. And the reason that the distillery was set up there was when Mark was running Bricklottie, Duncan, who was the head of distilling, told him that the best barley he'd ever seen was in Ireland.
Interesting.
And when Diageo shut down its brewery in Waterford, the brewery was making the syrup for Guinness and Kilkenny for different markets. It was a 20 million pound facility, or 20 million euro facility, and it became available because it was shut down. And Mark said, "Yeah, we can make whiskey here," because, as everyone here knows, is you have to make beer or go along the route of making beer before you make whiskey, right? Mm-hmm. There's a correlation between that. So you still go through the same process. At the fermentation stage, you either decide you're going to distill that or you're going to add hops to it to make beer.
Okay, so why this bottle color? Why this shape? What was the origin of this? It's a really beautiful bottle. I love the color.
Well, the grooves at the bottom make it easier to hold on to.
Okay, totally agree.
Okay, and it's a nice thing to pour from. The other thing you'll notice is no cork.
I was
the
so
glass stopper.
excited to use glass stoppers on this. It's
Glass
so
stopper.
great.
So you have no cork taint, but also it does continually provide a tight seal on there. And the color of the bottle, Waterford blue, and also the fact that most producers, especially out of Scotland and Ireland and other places, rely upon the color. So if you use a clear bottle, people look and go, "Oh, that's a dark whiskey. That must be good. That must be really old."
I see.
And color tells you nothing about a whiskey, right?
Okay.
Color,
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Color can be. You could have a 5-year-old whiskey that's been in a heavy first filled sherry
True.
barrel, a sherry hogshead.
You could have a 1-year barrel in Texas that is dark as sin.
Absolutely.
So
you could have a 20-year-old
color
from
means-
Scotland that's in a refill, a second fill bourbon, which is going to be really pale.
Right. It doesn't look like anything.
So it tells you nothing. So blue, because we're not going to sway people into believing that they have to look at color.
Okay. Good reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was like fancy because as you guys are in Waterford since the Crystal Company used to be there. And then why the orange cap and the blue caps on the top of these compared to
the blue is for the organic or the Arcadian.
Okay, that's what it
series.
means. Okay.
Yeah, and the yellow or orange is for all the single farm origins.
Okay. Now, is there going to be any other color caps, or is that just the only two things you guys are going to currently be making is single farm and organics?
No, so the organic is part of the Arcadian series, so biodynamic will be in there as well, so that will be blue. There will be some others. There's going to be some heritage barley strains. So they have worked with farms to grow barley that hasn't been grown in 100 years, 150 years.
Well, that should be fun.
So some will work, some won't work. So, it was interesting. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Westland Distillery, but I was talking to Matt Hoffman the other day, and Matt's always been on the extreme about what they're all about, what they're doing, and he's a big believer in terroir and barley and everything else like that. And they're working with some. I don't know if you listen to Whiskey Cast, but Mark Gillespie's podcast, but he was interviewing Matt about how a certain type of barley does better in Western Washington than it does in Eastern Washington.
That makes sense. I mean, the
soil conditions, just that's what they find out, and that's what they have.
Well, Western Washington versus Eastern Washington is like they're two completely different extremes of temperature.
Yeah, absolutely.
One is very much
Irish,
or Ireland or Scotland, and just the amount of rainfall and that type of stuff. And the others are an arid desert. So it's really crazy.
Yep. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So, so that's Waterford and or at least an introduction to it.
Chat,
a lot more to come.
If you have any more questions for Raj, go ahead and throw them in. James, I don't know if you're still on, but I know that you've been in our back room for quite a while. I wouldn't mind switching you out with Chris for a minute.
Yeah.
If you want to jump back on, if you can give us your notes as well. If you don't want to, that's cool too, man.
Or thoughts.
Chat, again, throw your questions in if you have any more for Raj. This has been a really fantastic stream.
Yes, indeed.
Learned a lot about Waterford. You can convince me that this is from 3 different farms, but you could probably also convince me that this was just 3 different releases from the same distillery. It
is from the same distillery, but it's I mean, Will, it's the traceability, the transparency, the provenance of each of these. If you can't get any more details from any other distillery than what Waterford's giving you. Yeah. So it is certainly 3 different farms same barley, same process, but the difference that it makes is where the barley's grown and how the barley's grown.
Yeah.
And that's what we set out to prove.
Well, I'm glad somebody's doing it. I'm glad somebody was taking the time, because taking the time to separate this process is just, you really have to commit to it.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy that somebody did commit to it and decided, hey, this is what we're going to do. And I look forward to more projects that you have coming out. I hope that you source barley from other places. I'd love to see what what Washington sourced barley would be like coming from your distillery. Because
I think that Waterford will only do barley that's grown in Ireland. That's what it's all about.
For now, you're going to blow up eventually, and you're going to have to get your barley from somewhere.
Well, you know what they're doing. They initially thought that they would do less production, but they're probably up to about 800,000 liters a year and have lots of barrels put down. The shareholders are no rush to have product to market. They believe in what Mark is doing and what his team is doing, and we will grow slowly, and we will introduce things when they're ready, and we're not going to rush things to market.
Chris, what was your favorite barrel, or what was your favorite farm of the three? Sarah has dubbed hers already.
Okay. And you're asking me?
Yeah.
Yes.
No, mine would be of the three would be the Dunbell.
Yeah, mine
Is
too.
that Bell?
Yeah, that's
Pretty sure that's the consensus winner. There's the Dunbell.
Yeah, and do you like the organic better?
Oof, I think so.
I think I like the organic better too. It just seems more rich in depth.
That one's empty. We don't have any more of that one.
Well, yeah, we do. But
we do. We have an unopened one. But
yeah, I'm interested to see, like you said, when these second and third series of each of these farms come out, how much does the divergence then change with the barley being in there for more years? What's that going to? I'm trying to see how that works. 2-3 years from now, what's that going to be like, and how does each variation going to be? It should be fascinating to see.
Well, the only way to know for sure is stay tuned. I mean,
exactly. It should be fun experiment for sure. And then
it will be. I mean, I've had all of the U.S. releases, the 1.2 versions. Obviously, they're older. They're slightly different mixtures from casks, but you can still tell that this is Dunmore, this is Dunbell, whatever. It's different. I threw up my email address. If anybody has any questions, they want to reach out to me directly.
Let me put that.
glassrev.com. And if you want to buy the Dunbell, go to glassrev.com, Waterford, and you can order the Dunbell on there, because, as I said earlier, it's not available through retailers.
I just copy pasted those in there. You were in the private chat on StreamYard.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry. Okay.
It's okay. We took care of all.
Oh, you know what? I see all of these comments in here. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
As I said, I'm not efficient. I'm not so.
Zoom's completely different.
Proficient with stream. I used to use it, and I just dumped them because I just I found it was too. I think when you're doing a streaming like this, it's fine. But when I tend to do more events and tasting events and stuff like that. So for me, being able to see everyone, and I've done, 75 to 100 people or 6 people, and having a larger group really makes a difference.
Right.
So I got a question actually on my text from Sandeep. He wants to know when we're going to do the Amroot lineup.
Well, whenever you want to, let me know, and we'll do that.
Okay,
yeah.
I would love to do that.
Happy to do that. I mean,
that would be fantastic.
We pride ourselves on the brands we import, and Texas is a great supporter of Amroot. I don't know how many of you had a chance to get the single cast that Chris Hart did through his his selection, but that's
victory
Chris
one?
was quite the sherry cask.
Okay, I haven't tried that one then.
Yeah,
it
it was
quite a rum cask, but not a sherry cask.
Yeah, it was one that for Whiskey Neat. Chris did. Yeah, so that's certainly available. But I like that. Somebody said Armored is the closest to Texas malts. Yeah, but definitely hit me up and we'll set up something. And in fact, we actually have mini, like pre-made up minis of Armored, that we can certainly send out.
Nice.
They actually come in.
They make those. That's cool.
Yeah, they come in tins and they look just like the big bottle. So
very cool.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to do that. Oh, there we go. Zach saying the Whiskey Neat Omelet was amazing, only $100. Yeah, I think that was a steal.
That's one thing that we didn't cover here. What do these run for us?
So the Single Farm Origins, the Rathclogh, the Dunbell, and the Dunmore, or the Dunmore and Dunbell, are about 95, and the organics about 110.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
what do you know? What stores carry them around here by chance?
Yeah. I mean, Total Wine has them. Specs.
Okay.
Yeah, wherever you expect, they have them. Victory Wine is our distributor in Texas, and
Victory
has pretty good expression, pretty good reach where they are. So
Mirage was asking what you guys think. Now that answers our question. Who your distributor was?
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I appreciate you taking your Saturday night. I apologize again for being tardy on being aboard. But,
no, we just appreciate you being here and walking through the lineup with us.
Yeah, this is fun. We never had them, so we appreciate you providing all these, and everybody that got them here and come to pick them up locally. We tried to convince them to come on camera, but nobody really wanted to. So,
well, we were joined by the best.
Chris, we did get Chris, and I really appreciate you joining Chris.
Really appreciate having you
nice
here.
to see you. It's been a while.
Yes, it has.
Yeah.
All right,
buddy.
Cheers, everybody.
I don't understand this. This is. Does he know when the tasting sets are coming? You talking about the Waterford tastings?
Yes.
Yeah.
No,
well, we won't.
The small ones. We talked early on about the 100 milliliter tasting set that you can purchase eventually. That's what he's wondering about.
Well, we're not right now, or initially, the plan is not to sell those. The tasting kits will be available for tasting events like this.
Gotcha.
But we may eventually branch out. But right now, I mean, there's so many things on our plate and Waterford's plate about what we're going to do. Since we only launched in September and the brand is blown up, and just not only in Canada but also worldwide, and just trying to be able to manage everything and try to do everything. We did not expect the response that it's received.
Okay, there's a question. Are there any plans to release into the Philippines at all?
I don't know about that, but I can find out and let you know.
Okay. Yeah, because our fans are all over the world, so it's
yeah. Well, if people follow me I'm at Whiskey Raj, you can see it on my
Sarah dropped
name
the
there,
link a little bit earlier in the chat. If you want to
do it
scroll
again,
up, she'll drop it again right now.
If you want to follow me on Twitter or on Instagram, you can reach me that way. I also did post my email address. There it goes, raj@glassrev.com, and at Whiskey Raj. I can certainly find out if you have any questions.
With an E? No E. No E.
Right there.
Right there in front.
No E. No E. There's no E in whiskey.
It's right there.
There you go.
All right.
Instagram and Twitter, same thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, Raj.
Thank you, Raj.
It was wonderful having you.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks for filling your time. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Absolutely.
Thank you, too.
See you again live on Monday, everybody.
All right. Cheers.
Thanks.
Bye.
Chris just left.